The seasons are starting to mean nothing to me anymore, where they used to mean everything. And this is powerful, this epiphany that I'm having. I'm going out doing landscaping quotes. It happens to be the weekend. I don't normally do quotes, but I'm leaving out of town to go to the Equip Exposition in Kentucky. So I just wanted to get the calendar nice and full. I can't believe that it's already fall again and it's cold outside and all the leaves are turning colors. And in Michigan, it's mid-October. And you say to yourself, I can't believe the summer's already over and now it's going to be Halloween again. And then at Christmas, you say, I can't believe it's Christmas again. And then when it's your birthday, I can't believe I'm this old. And how in the heck is it summer again already? It's like, and when the seasons go by and by and by and you get so desensitized to it, you start to learn that if you revolve your life and your emotions around the seasons and you let the seasons dictate how you're going to feel, in the beginning stages of this, it's easy to do that because for me, I'm a landscaper and I make hay while the sun shines. And even though the summers where I make all the money to pay all the bills and sock away for the winter in Michigan, I don't plow snow anymore. I did for 15 years. So for some people in the winter is like where all the money's at. But then again, hear what I just said, revolving around money. Well, it's not money, it's actually survival that's dictating the feelings that survival even creates, is dictating your higher level of being, of life, where you eventually want to go or who you want to eventually be. Because you can't really go anywhere, because wherever you go, there you are. And I just want to say real quick, there was a Dr. Wayne Dyer had told a story once where he was like in Maui in Hawaii, and there were some people there on vacation. And, he had been in Maui for a few weeks, and they didn't know that. But, and God rest his soul, he eventually moved to Hawaii, and that's where he passed away after writing, something like 42 bestsellers and all that. Anyways, I digress, but I'm just a big fan. So, and they asked him, these strangers, we really love it here, and we thought, what if we moved here? What is it like living in Hawaii, and what are the people like? And he says, well, where do you live? They're like, oh, we're from this state in the States. And he said, what is it like where you live? What are the people like where you live? Oh, they're mean. They cut you off in traffic. They're rude. In the grocery store, they're huffing and puffing. Everybody's just so rude. He said, well, that's probably what you'll find here. And the people were like perplexed. And he said the weirdest thing was the very next day he was walking by the beach on a boardwalk, and another couple came up to him and asked him the same exact question. They said, what is it like here? He said, well, where are you from? Okay, they told him. He said, what are the people like there? They said, oh my God, they're so nice, and people let you over in traffic, and everybody waves and smiles, and everybody's just so kind. He said, that's probably what you'll find here. And so basically, whatever you look for, you find a case to build that, and you build it around you in your perception equals your reality, and the conclusions that you come up with, you build the evidence, like the reticular activating in your system in your brain. Like if you get a white van or a white truck, you start noticing the other white Ford trucks everywhere. So there is a dynamic bandwidth and consciousness of extremely negative and extremely positive things, down to the lowest densities of pure God-forsaken evil, to the highest vibrations of white light, love, peace, joy, and the presence of heaven and the Holy Spirit, right? And wherever you pay attention to or vibrate at, it's like there's a saying, be careful of looking down into the hole, because the hole will look back at you. Like it's there's some things you don't even want to know. So in the 48 Laws of Power, it talks about don't associate with people that are going through dramatic chaos, and they're extremely chaotic people who attract all types of problems, because their monkeys might jump on your back. And it's a very weird thing. It takes a very high level of consciousness and love. Like I just keep going back to Jesus. The type of situations he put himself in, the people he put himself around in. But and he was such a high vibration that he was able to go in and remediate situations because of his level of spiritual authority. So back to what I was saying about the seasons. How many years? Because, I mean, time is linear, and there's something outside of time, which is this whole quantum reality that's beyond space and time, beyond the physical boundaries or the seasons of what this earth happens to be going through. There's you, there's the eternal you that can't die because it's never been born. And if you let something like the seasons predict how you're going to feel, and what I mean by that, I just want to be clear what I mean, what I don't mean, because there is like seasonal depression in the winter when people are cooped up in the house and you can't go outside and get vitamin D and sunshine. This is a real thing. People get incredibly depressed. I mean, some people get so depressed in the winter that when the spring finally breaks and they get sunshine, they just come alive. Like, but what I am saying is, if you're constantly waiting for a season, you know, I know somebody in my life who always says, "Oh, maybe next summer I'm going to do this thing," and then they'll be talking, you know, "Oh, by next summer." So it's still summer. It's not even the end of this summer, but they feel like this summer's gone, so they can't do it, and they're gonna do it for sure next summer, and they get in this feeling in their head, like they feel like they're gonna do this thing, but it's in a time and place that doesn't exist. Like if it's not on your calendar, you don't mark it down. Okay, Thursday evenings from 6 till 10 p.m. I'm doing this, come hell or high water, right? You mark down a schedule, have accountability measures, and implement, right? That's so. But what I mean is, if you're stuck and lost in this ethereal dream of always thinking about the seasons, it's really like watching a movie. In a movie, sometimes you suspend your disbelief and you go into this this make-believe. Most movies today suck. I actually like to go on, with my wife on Netflix, and she's like, "What are you doing trying to watch this movie? It was made in the 40s. How can it be any good?" I'm like, have you ever seen It's a Wonderful Life? I'm not watching this. It took like around Christmas a couple years ago. It took weeks, and then one day I was like, damn it, sit down. I popped some popcorn, and I just started playing the movie. I didn't give her a choice. Within minutes, she was sucked into the movie. We were both watching it. We were just glued. I mean, we paused it to get up and use the bathroom and let the dog out, but we were glued to this movie. And at the end, we were crying. And I looked, and she was sucked in. It was a great movie. But then right after the movie, the cognitive dissonance comes back into place. Like, what do you mean? How can it be these, you know? But I look at these brand new movies that come out, especially over the past 5 years, especially. You look, and the actors can't even act right because they're so. This is my projection, my hallucination. They're so inundated with their own information overwhelm and social media and who posted what on it, and trying to keep with all this stuff. There's so much information that they can't even get into the role because you can just tell their nervous system just can't even settle into the role, and you can see it. Like, there's so much other distractions going on. And this is me too. This is all of us. That they can't even act like they used to. Like, think about Harrison Ford back in Indiana Jones and all these different things. So what I'm talking about, there is huge environmental causes. Well, actually, they're causes and they're what's the word? Effects. Cause and effect. You know, that's partly distracting us, because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is just feel a certain way, you know. And I think that ultimately feeling a deep sense of fulfillment might be totally on the other side of discomfort, you know, facing fears, facing self-discipline, and the ability to get yourself, like, if you dream of, I don't know, writing a book. I wrote 3 books, and I'm not saying that they're all like amazing, but they are Amazon bestsellers. Sold like thousands of copies of the books by now. And I think that the second book, well, actually, the second and third book were harder because I learned a lot. But anyways, it was extremely uncomfortable. I had to like handcuff myself to my desk and actually go lease out an office space that I use for my landscaping business too, and handcuff myself to the desk and sleep on the floor. And I wouldn't allow myself, I would be in the office at 36 hours at a time, and my wife would call me and be like, what are you doing? When are you coming home? I'd be like, I'm not coming home until I write at least one full chapter of this book. She's like, I don't understand. You've been gone all day and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Why aren't you coming home? How much have you written already? I'm like, nothing. What the hell have you been doing? You've been in the office for 18 hours and you still haven't written a single chapter? What is going on? I'm like, you can come here and check on me. It's right down the street. I'll put you on video chat. I'm making out my wife to be crazy. She's not. She just really, she's obsessed with me. All right, but let me get to the point here and be serious. I said, well, I went to write the book and I couldn't. And then I wasted an hour scrolling on social media. Then I watched videos. Then I had to go pee. Then I went and got something to eat. Then after I tried to write the book and I couldn't, I started having tremendous anxiety and I wanted to leave. Then I started thinking about all the other things that I had to do. Then I started going through and paying all my bills online, checking my credit score, and then I got on the phone a little bit. Then I did some research and I tried to write the book again, and it was just, I couldn't get myself to write. And now I started having a severe panic attack. So I went and I walked around 20 times. And then the panic got so bad that I just gave up and I decided I was going to come home. And then I wouldn't let myself come home because I made an agreement that I wouldn't leave. And then I had to go pee again. And then I started making stupid videos. And it's like, and then I laid on the floor because I was so exhausted and I took a nap. And then I got to the point where my whole mind had settled and I was just sitting there. And finally, after all of that, I sat down and I busted out 2 chapters of the book. 2 chapters, and I wrote, and I left the office at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I had to wrestle down this ego that didn't want to cooperate. And I'm not saying I can do stuff like that every day. It just, I really set out to write this book. And now the book has sold thousands of copies. It's helped people all over the world. It's made me money. And I'm super proud of it. So what type of things in life do we need to block out in order to get ourselves to actually focus and implement? And it's really tough. And so those who are now adding on top of that level of attention deficit disorder or whatever, adding on now, but I can't do it because it's the summer. Now, if you have a landscape business like I do, you definitely ain't writing no book in the middle of the summer. It's not going to happen. You're swamped. The phone's ringing off the hook. You got employees. You got to keep this. You have way too much. It's just grind time. So I do it in the winter. But so looking at everything like holistically and from a 40,000 foot view, you can start to get more clarity around how can I here's the crux of all this. How can I decide in advance and predetermine how I'm going to feel when these things happen? When the good thing happens, when the bad thing happens, when the winter comes, when the summer comes. What is my self-talk going to be like? You're going to act like a fish out of water? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm so depressed. It's the middle of the winter. Man, this is your 24th winter. How many times are you going to go through this crap? Until you upgrade your identity and realize the winter always comes. The storm is always going to come. If you freak out and cry and scream and complain or get depressed when the storm comes, no. Go get a fucking gym membership at Planet Fitness for $10 a month and drag your ass to the gym every morning. And go there and go do a 30-minute workout, get your cup of coffee, stretch, write down your goals, clean your house, take care of your family, do what you got to do. Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just saying, like, decide in advance how you're going to behave in situations like the 4 seasons and what you're going to do, and then plan that out. If you keep running your life like it's the first time ever that this has happened, and you can't get a grip on yourself, then years are going to go by, and you're going to wake up 40 and 50, and you won't have accomplished the things that you've set out that deeply are going to fulfill you, that your heart's desires, right? Are your heart's desires. So now another thing is I think about is the whole family time thing. It's a weird like misnomer, like being present. It feels like a forceful thing. You got to be present with your family. You got to spend more time with them, or you're a piece of shit. Well, imagine a life like I believe you really do want to spend time with your family, but if you are having financial problems and you are not crushing it, and things aren't in alignment, and you're going through a hard season, it's also going to be hard to spend time with your family. Like, I think that your 20s are your 20s are your learning years, and your 30s are your earning years. And then the greatest years of your life are yet to come. Your life is going to keep getting better and better and better. You're going to feel better. You're going to be healthier. You're going to, like me, I'm 39 and I have gray hairs all over my head and in my beard, and I was really freaked out about that, and it made me, I didn't know how to handle, excuse me. Let me catch my breath. I didn't know how to handle it. And now, after, like my wife telling me 150 times, she calls me a silver fox. And that's a very good thing. So, I wouldn't trade how I think today for how I used to think for the world. I was so, I guess, underdeveloped in my consciousness as being able to see the world for what it really is. And I'm not saying I do now, but like, maturity is an amazing thing. And if it comes with a couple gray hairs, so wow, how beautiful. Look at those. Oh, that's a wreath. Where did it come from? It must have blown off someone's house. I thought it was like beautiful fall leaves in the middle of the street, and it was just like a wreath of fall leaves, but it was I think it was fake. Anyways, so here's what I want you to do: get out a calendar and block out your vacations, block out family time. You can do quarterly sprints. Go run 3, 6, 9, 12. Run for 3 months and then take a vacation. So for me, it's the first week in July, 4th of July vacation. The first week in September is my wedding anniversary. Then the first week in December. And then the first week in March, right? You got to take a whole week off. You got to spend time with family and all this stuff. But then, what are the other family times? On Sundays? Do you take a half day on Sundays and you get lunch with your parents? Do you go see your grandma, your grandpa? Do you go to a diner and get some breakfast with people you love? And when you structure all this stuff in advance, if people pop shit up on you in the middle of the week, hey, Wednesday, we got to go to the families and do this, and try to guilt trip you, okay, actually, I looked at my schedule and I do have tonight free and I can go tonight. But don't think every time you pop something up on me on a Wednesday, I'm just going to be able to go and you're going to guilt trip me if I don't. I do family stuff on Sundays, every Tuesday night. I'm just speaking in general. Every Tuesday night, I do date night with my wife religiously. Wednesday night is my podcast night. Thursday evening, I usually have open. And then Saturday night, sometimes we do movie night. And Monday nights, I do personal one-on-one coaching calls and consulting. If I'm doing deep dive coaching, I do that Friday Zoom calls. Saturdays, I do all my errands. I do Friday finances. I do all my quotes on Mondays. Like, there's structure to what I'm doing here. And when people around you start to learn that you have a structure and you have boundaries, you don't let people push you around or people's emotions push you around, and you are the container that can contain the storm. And the storm is always going to grow bigger and bigger. Sometimes it'll be very intense and you'll have to learn how to contain that, right? nobody's perfect at this. But I mean is like what we're talking about this this dichotomy of flow versus structure and flow. You know, if your life is all pure flow and you don't have any structure, it'll be very hard to get anywhere that's significant. If your life is purely all structure and you don't have any flow, it also will be hard to scale anything. Imagine the river and the river banks. I've talked about this before. The river rushes. It's rushing water. It's energy. It's flow. But the river banks is the structure. And the stronger and higher and more rock the river banks are made out of, and the higher they go, and the is the more, and the bigger the river banks are, is the more, and the river can rush through it, right? So think about it like a circuit board in a computer. It's very highly structured and organized, and now you can flow electricity through it. If you had electricity that was just flowing all over by itself and it didn't have any structure to flow through, it would just go all over the place and dissipate. You couldn't do anything. But when you run it through a circuit board, you can power a computer, you can power a power station, you could power the whole world, right? If you have, so I could talk about this forever, and I'm kind of going on and on and on here. But it's an inductive type of communication. It's very inductive. What I mean is the opposite of reductive. It's quantum. It keeps opening the more you talk about it and think about it, and the more that you can get these things to fire off in your consciousness, is the more you could begin to integrate them into your unconscious, and then they will just happen in your everyday walking, existing life. Like, if you understand, and what you need is epiphanies. You can intellectually understand this stuff, but until you actually go through it and have, the pinnacle of learning is actually real experience. The pinnacle of learning is actual experience. When you go through the thing, and you've cried, you've been to the funeral, you've built the business, you've failed in the business, you can speak from experience, and you've gone through and you've processed those emotions and you've leveled up, and now you can speak from a place of wisdom, which is a place of understanding without emotional attachment. It's wisdom. So how do you shortcut that process and upgrade your consciousness so much quicker? That's another question. How do you upgrade your consciousness and evolve it faster? I used to ask these questions all the time to Rob. And they have found, if you study Ken Wilber, Cosmic Consciousness and the 1, 2, 3 of God, and you pay attention to people like David Data, The Way of the Superior Man, and stuff like that. Well, meditation, deep levels of meditation can help you connect dots faster. And then also saying hell yes and getting up off your ass and going and doing things and taking chances and taking risks and getting around other really successful people. You got to get up and take action. Like, I just literally joined my friend Joshua Latimer's private implementation coaching group called War Plan Insiders, and it's $5,000 to get in. And I put my money where my mouth is, and I got inside of this group so I can, because this guy Joshua Latimer, this friend of mine, he's like ran like 7 different businesses, or he runs 7 businesses. I don't know which ones he's sold or whatever, but you guys made millions of dollars, and he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money to learn all this high-level business stuff. And he's going to teach a lot of this stuff over the period of the next 6 months for $5,000. So I'm like, I have never spent $5,000 on anything like this my whole life. I've always been fighting for survival. What's going to get me to the next step? It's to bet on myself and put my money where my mouth is and get around successful people. The next level of leveling up is money gets you access. So when you invest in your education, instead of like a stupid ass car with rims on it, you see what I'm saying? All right, I'm done talking here. Check out my podcast, the Untrapped Podcast with Keith Kalfas. And I got to get to this quote. I'm driving around in circles.